Match Fish Tank Unit 6, Lesson 12, Anchor Problem Number 1. So as we take a look at this first anchor problem, you'll notice some things similar to what we've done before with ratio tables. And I can see that it tells me there's 1 cup of sugar for every 2 cups of flour. So I can see that there, 1 cup of sugar, 2 cups of flour. That would mean 3 cups of sugar for 6 cups of flour, 5 for 10. For 8 cups of sugar, there would be 16 cups of flour and 10 cups of sugar for 20 cups of flour. That would be a really big batch of sugar cookies. I've now used the ratio to complete the table. So if I know the number of cups of sugar in the recipe, I'm going to determine how much flour to use. And I can figure that out by saying that for every 2 cups of sugar, for every 1 cup of flour, I will need 2 cups of sugar. So if I have 1 cup of sugar, I'm going to multiply it by 2 to figure out the number of cups of flour. So now I'm going to look at that exactly backwards and say, if I know how much flour there is, how can I determine the amount of sugar to use? So for every amount of flour, I simply need to divide that by 2 to find out how much sugar I have. In each of these 2 equations, there's a different independent and dependent variable. The independent variable is the thing that we're changing. So let's just imagine in situation B that I know I want to make as big of a batch of sugar cookies as I possibly can, but I only have a certain amount of sugar. I have tons of flour. I don't have to worry about that, but I only have a certain amount of sugar. So then it's pretty clear that I would want to use the equation here in B to say, okay, so if I have 6 cups of sugar, and that's the maximum amount of sugar I have, now I can figure out how much flour there is. So in this case, sugar is independent because the amount of sugar I have is what I'm changing, which then affects the amount of flour that I have to use. But by phrasing the same information the opposite way around in C, now I'm asking myself, if I change the amount of flour, how much sugar do I need to use? So this is exactly the opposite situation. If perhaps I were looking around and not finding much flour on the shelves, and so I know I have to figure out how much flour I've got available before I can go out and see how much sugar I have. Now my flour is my independent variable because I'm making changes to that, and then that affects how much sugar I have. The independent variable is what you change, and then you see what happens to the dependent variable. The dependent variable depends on or changes with the independent variable. One way you can think of that is we think of adults as being independent, and sometimes we speak of children as being their dependents. If an adult decides to move across the country, they can choose to do that given their circumstances because they're independent. Their dependent child would then have to move with them because what the independent variable does, the dependent variable is affected by that.